There is a photograph taken on November 22, 1963 in Dallas, Texas. In it, a woman wearing a pink suit is leaning over the body of the most powerful man in the world. Her white gloves are stained with blood. Her face is pale but composed. Around her, chaos erupts. Secret Service agents shout. Crowds scream. The presidential motorcade accelerates toward the hospital. But the woman does not scream. She does not collapse. She stays beside him. That woman was Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. And in that moment, history froze her forever as the grieving First Lady of the United States. For millions of people around the world, that single image defined her life. A young widow dressed in elegance and tragedy, standing beside the violent end of an American presidency. But the story of Jackie Kennedy did not begin in Dallas. It began decades earlier, long before the cameras, before the White House, before the legend of Camelot that would surround her name forever. To understand Jackie Kennedy, you have to go back to the beginning. She was born Jacqueline Lee Bouvier on July 28, 1929, in Southampton, New York, into a world that combined privilege with quiet instability. Her father, John Black Jack Bouvier III, was a charming Wall Street stockbroker known for his charisma, his elegance, and his appetite for risk. He loved horses, expensive suits, and long nights that stretched far beyond respectable hours. Her mother, Janet Lee Bouvier, was very different. She was disciplined, ambitious, and deeply concerned with social status. Where Jack Bouvier brought glamour and unpredictability, Janet brought order and determination. From the outside, the Bouvier family appeared to live a life of wealth and sophistication. They owned beautiful homes. They moved comfortably within New York's high society. And their daughters, Jackie and her younger sister Lee, grew up surrounded by privilege. But behind the polished surface, the marriage was already breaking apart. Jack Bouvier drank heavily. His infidelities became increasingly difficult to hide. Arguments between her parents slowly turned the elegant household into something far less stable than it appeared. Jackie was only a child, but she understood more than most people realized. Friends would later say that even at a young age, she seemed unusually observant, as if she were always watching the room carefully, noticing the emotions others tried to conceal. When Jackie was 11 years old, her parents' marriage finally collapsed. The divorce in 1940 was devastating for the young girl. It forced her to confront something that would shape her personality for the rest of her life. She learned that appearances could be deceiving. She also learned that emotions were not always meant to be displayed. Instead of becoming rebellious or dramatic, Jackie turned inward. She developed a quiet reserve that many people later mistook for coldness. But those who knew her well understood that the distance was a form of protection. She had simply learned early in life how to hide vulnerability behind elegance. As she grew older, Jackie's intelligence became impossible to ignore. She attended some of the most prestigious schools available to young women of her social class. At the Chapin School in New York and later at Miss Porter's School in Connecticut, she quickly distinguished herself as a brilliant student. She loved literature. She loved poetry. And above all, she loved history. Teachers described her as thoughtful and curious, with a sharp wit that could surprise people who expected her to behave like a typical society girl. But Jackie had other passions too. One of them was horseback riding. She spent long hours practicing, competing in equestrian events, and developing the graceful posture that would later become part of her public image. Photographs from her teenage years often show her on horseback, focused and confident, completely comfortable in the saddle. The world of horses gave her something the world of high society often did not: freedom. By the time she entered college, Jackie Bouvier had already developed the qualities that would later fascinate the public. She was elegant without appearing to try, intelligent without seeming arrogant, charming but never fully open. She first attended Vassar College, one of the most prestigious women's colleges in the United States. But Jackie soon found herself drawn toward something beyond the traditional expectations placed upon women of her background. She wanted to see the world. In her junior year, she left Vassar to study in Paris as part of a study abroad program. The city changed her. Paris in the early 1950s was alive with art, literature, philosophy, and the lingering cultural brilliance of Europe. Jackie wandered through museums, attended lectures, and immersed herself in the history and architecture of the city. For the first time, she felt completely at home in a world that valued intellect and culture as much as wealth. Years later, she would say that if she had not returned to the United States, she might have lived in Paris forever. But life had other plans. After finishing her studies and graduating from George Washington University in 1951, Jackie surprised many people by choosing a career rather than immediately marrying into society. She became a reporter. Specifically, she worked for the Washington Times-Herald as the inquiring camera girl. The job was unusual. Each day, Jackie walked through the streets of Washington, D.C., asking strangers simple questions while a photographer captured their reactions. What did they think about politics? About love? About the future of the country? Her column quickly became popular. People liked her curiosity, her charm, and her ability to make strangers feel comfortable speaking honestly. But the job also placed Jackie directly in the center of the political world. Washington in the early 1950s was filled with young politicians, ambitious journalists, and powerful families shaping the direction of the nation. And it was within that world that Jackie met the man who would change everything. In 1952, at a dinner party hosted by mutual friends, Jackie Bouvier met a young congressman from Massachusetts named John F. Kennedy. He was tall, confident, and already surrounded by a quiet sense of political destiny. John Kennedy was charming in a way that seemed effortless. He could tell stories for hours, laugh easily, and make everyone around him feel as though they were part of something exciting. But Jackie noticed something else about him: curiosity. Unlike many men she had met in Washington, John Kennedy was genuinely interested in ideas. He wanted to talk about books, about world history, about the future of American leadership. Their conversations stretched late into the evening. Within months, the relationship became serious. When John proposed in 1953, Jackie accepted. Their wedding on September 12, 1953, in Newport, Rhode Island, became one of the most celebrated social events of the decade. More than 700 guests attended the ceremony, and thousands more gathered outside hoping to glimpse the glamorous couple. Newspapers described the wedding as the union of beauty and ambition. But behind the glamour, Jackie was stepping into a life that would demand far more sacrifice than she could have imagined. Because marrying John Kennedy meant marrying politics, and politics would soon bring them to the highest office in the world. By the end of the 1950s, the political ambitions of John F. Kennedy were becoming impossible to ignore. His charisma, youth, and powerful family network were transforming him into one of the most promising figures in American politics. When he launched his presidential campaign in 1960, the nation began to pay close attention, not only to him, but also to his remarkable wife. During the campaign, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis quickly captivated the public. Fluent in several languages and deeply cultured, she brought elegance and intelligence to the political stage. When Kennedy won the election, the young couple entered the White House, marking the beginning of an era that Americans would later remember as Camelot. By 1963, the presidency of John F. Kennedy had already become a symbol of youth, ambition, and modern leadership. The American public admired the elegance and intelligence of Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, who had transformed the White House into a place of history, culture, and national pride. But behind the beauty of public life, the pressure was enormous. Jackie carried the responsibility of representing the nation while protecting her family from the relentless attention of the media. Despite the glamorous image, her private world was often filled with anxiety, loneliness, and the constant awareness that political life could change in a single moment. That moment arrived on November 22, 1963. During an official visit to Texas, the presidential motorcade moved slowly through the streets of Dallas. Crowds gathered along the sidewalks, cheering and waving as the president and first lady passed by in an open limousine. It appeared to be another ordinary moment in the life of a popular administration. Then the gunshots rang out. Within seconds, confusion turned to horror. The president had been struck. Jackie, sitting beside him, instinctively reached toward him, her pink suit instantly becoming one of the most haunting images in American history. The motorcade raced toward the hospital, but the outcome was already becoming tragically clear. The assassination of John F. Kennedy became one of the most shocking moments in modern history. remembered as the assassination of John F. Kennedy. In the days that followed, Jackie Kennedy showed a quiet strength that moved the entire world. Standing beside the nation during its grief, she helped shape the memory of her husband's presidency as something almost mythic, a brief moment of hope and promise that Americans would later remember as Camelot. And from that moment forward, Jackie Kennedy was no longer just a first lady. She had become a legend.